My job on this planet is to entertain, and my ability to entertain comes through my creative ability. Coming up with images and ideas that bring joy helps you reflect on the fact that there's all sorts of beauty and mystery in the world.
The artist and executive creative director, Gordon Hull, first made a name for himself as the co-founder of Surface to Air. Since then, he's brought that same punk energy, humor, and humanity to creative collaborations with brands like Ralph Lauren, Adidas, and Tory Burch, and with creative studios like Chandelier and Mother.
I literally have done every fucking thing that could be a measure of success, and yet I'm still out there grinding every day. But I refuse to give up because I don't know what else to do. I'm really scared of not making things.
In today's episode, Gordon opens up about the pressure to stay relevant, that quiet conflict between artistic fulfillment and financial reality, and what it takes to stay true to your creative mission and personal values, even as your definition of success evolves.
I think failure is flexible. Failure for me is an opportunity to learn about the mistakes that I made. That's always why I've been so much more drawn to people in general who are very critical of me than having someone be like, oh, I really liked what you did.
Gordon, welcome to Fail Up.
I mean, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, thank you. We're so excited you're here. We're sorry we're running disastrously late for you today.
That's okay.
We're starting everyone with just a little bit of how we met, our meet cute.
Okay.
How do you remember it?
I remember I had come into Chandelier. It was like my first day there, and I was getting introduced around. And there was this like extremely cool Australian lady there who had this like
I'll take it.
Black,
I'll take it.
Yeah, who had this black like sort of fedora on. That was like a round fedora, and I remember you had like this like white button-down shirt on, so almost similar like today, but white instead of black.
Yeah.
And
staple.
I just remember you were extremely cool, and I was really excited to work with you, and then like a month later you left to go back to Australia.
That happened a couple of times.
Yes, but then
wait,
you came back. Then like a year later, you came back.
3 months later. Felt like a year. I think I was
was
back
it only
within,
3 months?
I think I was back maybe within 6 months. Yeah.
Oh,
it was
gosh.
fast.
I mean, it felt like you were gone for like a year.
Yeah.
And I remember I was so bummed that you left, and then I was so excited when you came back. And then we had some really interesting adventures.
We really did.
I will never forget the Toys R Us pitch that we got kicked out. we got kicked out of the pitch from.
Wait,
for our radical honesty.
Can we please? We have to. I know we're going to get into a conversation around failure, but we could just tell this story, and the episode would be great.
Oh, because it was an amazing failure, of which I was like so incredibly proud to be a part of.
Tell us how you remember. I also have some funny memories of that.
There were a few extremely memorable parts of this. We had been invited. I was at Chandelier at the time. I was the executive creative director there, and you were the managing director. And we had been invited to pitch Toys R Us, which was failing. Toys R Us, another example of like a failing company.
Did not fail up though.
Did not fail up. Fell down like a broken toy. And which is also like a broken toy is such a tragedy, and that Toys R Us represents the most grandiose version of that. Yeah. It's kind of depressing, but I was really excited that we were going to go pitch Toys R Us. I'm like, okay, this is going to be so much fun. This is going to be so cool. But we were invited as a part of like 10 agencies that came to pitch, and they gave us this like brief, and they gave us 2 weeks to come back and present our pitch in order to be invited to participate in the actual pitch.
So ridiculous.
I mean, advertising, right?
So ridiculous.
Advertising. And so we went away for like 2 weeks, and we came back, and it was just the two of us. And I remember I picked you up in my car from Chandelier, and we drove to New Jersey. And I remember being like, okay, our presentation is gonna be pretty radical, because like one of the main things we were suggesting was that they sort of eradicate all of this real estate that they had, which was holding them down, and do something with it by eradicating most of the shelves and using that as experiential places for kids to play, right? And like
I believe the concept was called adult play.
Oh my God, yes, you're right.
That I will never forget.
And I remember like we did the pitch deck was like half like in crayon and stuff, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
And I remember when I picked you up that morning at Chandelier, you were wearing like an incredibly sexy outfit for a pitch at a toy company. Like, I mean, I was dressed similar to today, you know, like this is my normal mode.
Yeah, I was probably wearing a leather mini. That was like
you were wearing a leather. Can I curse on this? You were wearing a fucking leather mini skirt.
I lived in that for years.
And a pair of heels. And I like, I just took one look at you and I was like,
We're
my
fucked.
God. No, at first I was like, wow, gosh, Alana.
She looks great today, but wrong place, wrong time.
No, it's like, God, Alana looks fucking amazing. We're going to Toys R Us to tell them that they need to like get rid of their toys and become an experiential playground.
I know, and also the concept was adult play, and I turned up in like head to toe leather. It was just so weird. It was such a funny moment though. I just remember, I was getting in. Richard's like, you guys can go save Toys R Us, and we're like, we're on it. And the whole thing was so hilarious.
Yeah, so we did the pitch, and
but I feel like we bonded over that.
We definitely, because it was just the two of us, and it went so badly. It went so unbelievably badly that like we were pitched to the whole room of board members and executives and like everybody, and they could not believe what we were telling them. And they were like, "So we should liquidate half of the stores to turn into," and we're like, "The spaces are very very underused and blah blah."
You know what? They should have done that.
They should have done it.
I still stand by it. It was a great idea.
It was.
That was when it was like online shopping was first starting to come in. They were starting to like slowly get destroyed at the beginning by Amazon, and it's like they should have just turned them into places where people could come and play and experience the toys, because no one's going to walk up those dusty aisles to buy a Barbie.
I mean, you know that you've done something right potentially when I remember the pitch went really badly. It was like this dead silence at the end. They thanked us for our time, and we went out to the parking lot, and you and I just sat there on the side of my car, and we're like, well, that went well. And then, like, you know it's gone really bad when they don't even get back to you the next day to tell you that you're not going to be invited. They emailed us on the drive back. Like it was like 45 minutes later when we discovered that.
Never come here again.
Yeah, but that's a great example of like a tremendous fail.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like
hilarious
it wasn't like it affected, Chandelier's business so much. And I think that it definitely affected Toys R Us's business, because had they chosen us, there's a fairly good, I think there's a fairly good part of me that thinks that Toys R Us might still have survived another year.
It could have been us.
Hey,
we could have.
Sorry.
We could have saved Toys R Us from bankruptcy. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, I'd love to just like take a step back. Obviously, I know you as Gordon now. What were you like as a kid?
Well,
I can just imagine.
My childhood was fun, and it was weird, and it was interesting. My dad was a professor of African history at NYU.
Really? I never knew that.
Which is why, as a kid growing up, everybody was like, "Are you black?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Well, why is your dad a professor of African history?"
I never knew that.
And I never even wondered for a second. I never thought for a second that was like a weird question, but definitely as I got older, and the reaction continued to stay the same. Like your dad's a professor of African history. Are you like white South African? And I'm like, no, I'm like a wasp. I'm I'm from a super waspy family.
Where are you from?
I'm from upstate New York, but my family's from New York, and
you're like, I'm a wasp from Westchester.
Yeah, well, I grew up on an apple orchard too, so like I had this very weird sort of childhood where like my mom she started her career as a fabric designer and then got into cooking and became a caterer, and she made her name from having won a local cooking recipe contest with a dish that she had completely made up called chicken bawamba that was based on like a recipe that she invented from a trip that she and my dad had taken to Africa. And because they used to go to Africa all the time. And when I was a kid, I went to Africa a number of times also. And like that was a huge part of my identity in a way, but definitely my parents. And this is in like
Never knew this about you.
1974. My mom and I. This was before I was born. I was born in '77. But before I was born, a couple of years before that, my mom and dad would obviously spent a lot of time there. When my mom decided she wanted to become a cook and had to have a catering business, she entered this contest with like a fake recipe that was called chicken mwamba, and it won in our small town upstate New York, which was so bizarre.
God,
and my
so
brother and I,
bizarre.
when we found out only like in our 20s that the recipe wasn't even real.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was the funniest thing of all time.
I mean, it's kind of interesting to think about that story now because, like, at the time, obviously, but if that happened now, I feel like the reaction would be so different, right?
well,
Cultural appropriation.
But I have a lot of conversations with my dad now about the fact that his job would not have existed for him. Like to be a white guy who's the professor of African history.
And
he
maybe
was like,
it shouldn't.
well, he was at NYU and he was the head of the history department at NYU,
Yeah.
and there was a huge backlash against him in like the late 80s. But he was also one of the most popular professors at NYU, and so it was a weird time for him. And I think now he's definitely conflicted about the fact that he wouldn't have been able to have the career that he had.
How did both of those experiences influence you and who you became in your career path?
So not only did I have this dad who was a professor of African history and a mom whose background was in like textile design and then like abstract cooking, but I grew up on an apple orchard. And so like going to my parents was like this whole Johnny Appleseed sort of thing, but then their house was like all weird African art and stuff. So there was this insane culture clash that was always going on, and also the fact that like so many of my parents' best friends were not just black but were like African, and we constantly had like a stream of like African people coming to visit us who were like black from a tonality like a much darker black skin than what people and African Americans in the States are. And they were these like amazing, hilarious people that were so warm and so welcoming. And so my experience growing up was like black culture, African American culture for me was much more rooted in like straight up African culture. And like a lot of the music that my parents introduced me to was a cross between like what I was listening to on I grew up in Orange County, New York, in a town called Warwick, and I was obsessed with music and the radio. And during the day, my parents would be like playing me like African stuff that they were interested in. But at night, I had this radio that was able to get a radio station called Z100, which right now is like one of the biggest like commercial pop radio stations in the country. And when I was a kid growing up, I couldn't listen to it during the day, but I would listen to it at night, and I could just barely get a signal from it. And at the time, Z100 was still like, it was a very different station than it is now, and it played a ton of like Puerto Rican freestyle music. So like during the day, I was listening to African stuff, but at night, I was really into Puerto Rican freestyle. And I remember like making like weird, pressing record on a cassette tape and trying to like capture these sounds. And
wow.
I didn't even know what they were. I didn't even know how strange it was. But like at the time, all of these things were just causing like an immense cultural like stew inside of me that I think has like really affected every aspect of my life creatively and conceptually. And I think about it a lot. I actually think about it a lot because it never seemed strange to me, but the way it was perceived by other people, especially as a kid growing up in that small town, was very alternative.
Like almost like you guys were the outsiders.
Well, my mom also, her like, not her partner, but like her first in command was this elaborately hilarious, flamboyant gay man who like half raised me and my brother. And, he was like introducing us to all sorts of music. And that was at a time where there weren't really a lot of gay people around. And yet like a huge part of my life was spent like with him and with like a bunch of people from Africa. And like, it was just totally trippy, but it just didn't seem weird.
Influenced your creative vision and sensibility as an adult?
Well, I think that, it was kind of like having access to the randomness and openness that the internet provides, but like
but in real life.
but in real life. And so like being obviously welcoming and warming to every idea or personality or like I felt like I was being shoved. I didn't at the time because I didn't know, but looking back and processing it, I'm like, it's insane all of the different aspects of culture and lifestyle that were being thrown at me. Like, and I didn't flinch at any of them. You know, I also had like, I mean, I could talk about it for forever, but I really think that there's always been an inherent openness and curiosity to everything for me. And I think that it's something that has just always been kind of obvious, that like new ideas or new concepts or this idea of a mashup or a collage always seemed like the way things should be. Like there wasn't ever one. There's a recipe, right? But like the ingredients are always changing, and you need to be open to like what those ingredients are. And that's how you can create this like insane dish.
I love hearing that. It gives me so much context to even your DJing, you know, and your music taste. And very cool. Very cool. So you've worked at all these different places, right? And you've worked at all these incredible brands around the world, you know, as we said in the intro, from Ralph Lauren, but then Christie's and agencies like Chandelier where we met. I'm interested what the through line, is there a through line between all these different roles that you've played? And what was the highlight?
I mean, clearly the highlight was a failed Toys R Us pitch.
Clearly. Chandelier was pretty fun. That was a fun era for sure. Stressful, but fun.
I mean, it's hard to say because, like, I really deal with this, like, child star complex in a way, in that, like, as much as I try to continue to distance myself from, like, what we did with Surface to Air, it still keeps on being the thing that people, like, oh my God, this is Gordon. You know, he was one of the founders of Surface to Air. And I'm just like, that was for me so long ago. And like, it's like, I'm always trying to kind of like move away from that. But sometimes I'm like, well, I guess I should still kind of lean into it because it was still such a fascinating, interesting period that has literally set up the rest of my career. Came from like the 14 years of my life, starting you know, in college. We started Surface to Air when I was like a senior in college or junior in college even, and that just became like my entire youth. And that was a youth that was based on like a creative, adventurous lifestyle that was about doing whatever we could possibly think of and funneling every single penny that we made into bigger and better ideas, without any like regard to would we ever need health insurance or like, you know, like, you know, stuff like that. Even my parents were like, at what point are you guys going to start taking this seriously? Money. And I'm like, I don't know, because we have like 120 employees, and you know, I lived in Paris for like most of my 20s. But yes, like, you know, like we were still operating like we. We're just scrappy kids that had no idea what we were doing. So was that the highlight for you? Well, when I think about like, when I look back to some of the work and the things that we accomplished, I'm like, I still don't know that. I mean, I've done work on a bigger stage, so to speak. Like you might argue that like, you know, I ran Target Holiday, and the, you know, like the budget that you have to do something like Target Holiday, there's like, you know, maybe 2 other budgets in the world for a commercial that are bigger than that. Yeah. And if there are, I don't know what they are, but they're probably like Coca-Cola
Super Bowl or something, yeah.
But, you know, like when I think about that, like that sort of playground is massive and incredibly exciting. You know, you're doing something that like, you know, on one hand, I do something that's so niche, that's Surface to Air, that's like, you know, a music video for Justice, or like a project for a crop circle for Hello Kitty, or like all these weird, crazy things. And then like that's so specific and so niche and so underground and so cool. And then I'm doing like a Target Holiday commercial that like you will see at the car wash while you're waiting for your car to get done, or like you couldn't watch a single moment of TV without seeing it. And I'm like, oh, that's so crazy, because that becomes like the biggest and the broadest. So, you know, I constantly live in this like world where I'm like, well, I don't know, because
which one do you value more? The kind of, I guess, the
punk
the creative experimentation and the creative risk taking, or the scale of the Target project?
The punk in me is really obsessed with Target.
We're on part 2. God. We're just in it now, I guess. We're recording. Where am I looking? I told you, New York is catching up with me. We're on part 2 of Gordon's because last week was insane and we were interviewing so many people and everything took longer than we thought, and so we lost track of time. So we're kind of doing the second part, and so we were going to plan our outfits so they were going to be the same. And of course, my amazing producer is not here this week. So I'm lost without her. Didn't realize Gordon was here. And so I'm, of course, not wearing the same outfit. So you guys will just figure this out.
And here I intentionally wore the same outfit but changed the color of my sneakers, thinking that it was going to be
funny. Really cool and tricky, and
everything looks exactly the same, but all of a sudden I'm wearing a different color pair of sneakers. I thought would be kind of fun, and I also thought that maybe you would
wig out about it,
upset, and then I would be like, "It's cool. It's all part of it."
And here I am, not even.
Meanwhile, I have worn the exact same outfit and didn't even need to.
Everyone else has been really smooth sailing. I don't know what's going on. I promise.
Don't worry, we're failing up.
We're failing. We're just failing now. We're going to get to the. Hopefully, we'll get to the up piece. But yeah, we had a really interesting chat with Gordon. Got to know you a little bit better and some of your work, which was amazing. And now we're going to get into it about failure. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. One of the first questions I always ask everyone is just how do you define failure? How do you think about it? And both personally and professionally.
I mean, I think failure is flexible. There's certain things that are flexible about it. Like, I guess it's one thing if you have metrics against the idea of success and failure, right? But I think that we're not really talking about that aspect of it. I think we're talking about almost like a self-imposed idea of failure. Mm-hmm. And I think that failure is actually really important. And
how so?
Well, I think that I'm always trying to learn, right? I'm always trying to in every aspect of my life, I feel like I'm always trying to learn. And that doesn't always mean that I do learn, but I'm always kind of attempting to learn. Mm-hmm. And I find that as a creative person, I kind of am always and I wonder if this is part of quote unquote imposter syndrome, but I'm always feeling like I'm missing something. Even in the best version of anything that I'm doing, I still am it could be better. What am I doing wrong? And no, this could be better. Oh, if only I could see what's wrong with it. And that
it's the curse of the high achiever.
Yeah. And I think that that's always why I've been so much more drawn to people in general who are very critical of me.
Interesting.
And I wonder if part of that is I'm just trying to win them over, or because they're such a tough crowd that I'm trying to, and I feel like they see more when people are when people don't like something that I'm done, or if they have a critical thought about it, I'm much more into that than having someone be like, oh, I really liked what you did.
What's going on with that for you? Why do you think that is? Is it part of, that kind of critique is part of your process, so you're drawn to people who help you shape things?
I think it gives into I think even artists that and creative directors, or just people in general who are the most egotistical, are still battling an internal monologue.
Oh, definitely. The loudest.
Yeah, and that's why I feel there's two roads to go in. There's the path towards just blatant acceptance. What I did is fucking awesome, even though I know it's not. Everybody else thinks that it is, because it is. Mm-hmm. And then there's the person who's gosh, I know what I did. It came out okay, but I know it could have been so much better. And the people who see it for what it is, I tend to think that they're on the right side of history. No, I don't know.
And how do you balance that with, because, it's funny, we had Patch in here last week who is a therapist, and he was saying that the biggest driver of divorce, but personally but also work relationships falling, two co-founders, whatever, falling apart, is criticism. That people feel like they're criticized too much. And he feels like that is a core driver of kind of relationships falling apart. So how do you personally balance that to make sure it's like you're getting enough criticism to like help shape you, but not too much?
Alana, you're talking to like a divorced person who also had a company with many partners. But I'm still like best friends with one of my original Surface to Air partners. Although I am not very close to any of the other ones, but like, and I'm also amicably divorced. And I think that like that certainly can be true. What Patch or whoever that person said, but I definitely think that there's tendencies of individuals, and I think that like the thing that my former partner at Surface to Air, Jeremy Roseanne, who's still like one of my best friends. Like I'm obsessed with Jeremy, and I think it's mutual. But like we're obsessed with each other because we get to the heart of all of our shit, and it's like we always are like, I love what you did, but you know, it could have been blah blah blah, and you could have done blah blah blah, and I'm always like, I know, and I'll say the same thing to him. I'll be like, Junior, I love that film that you did, but I kind of wish, and he'd be like, I know, you know, like. We give that to each other and we accept that of each other. And immediately when we first started working together, we hadn't built that rapport yet, which was like this very open honesty and the assumption that the other person is going to see what's wrong.
Yeah, and I think that requires such a deep level of trust in that other person, right? To know that they're doing it because it's in, you know, they want you to be better and it's not just criticizing you to tear you down. Yep.
And I feel like in our initial partnership, there was a lot of conflict because we didn't have that. And because we were propping each other up in a false sense or like, you know, battling each other, our egos creatively. But once we got to the point where we realized that we both really suck and that we love what the other does. And but we're like, we're so terrible. And yet like, I love what you do. And it's like, I love what you do. And I'm like, let's just be terribly awesome together. You know,
I get that.
That made it work. Yeah. And like, we've had arguments, but we never really had like any sort of falling out because this idea of the criticism was so key and clutch to our relationship. And as a creative, like going back to what we were saying before, I find that failure for me is an opportunity to learn about the mistakes that I made. So like I'm making these piñatas right now. Great segue into these piñatas.
Yeah.
So I'm making these piñatas and for this store in Brooklyn called Take Me With You. And it was this woman who I'd met who was a big Surface to Air fan, and she had met me and was like, oh my God, I have this store. I'd love for you to make something. I love the art. I love Surface to Air. I love all these things. And I was like, okay, long story short, I was like, I don't want to make any clothing or jewelry or whatever, but I'd like to make piñatas. She was like, piñatas? Do you know how to make piñatas? I was like, no, but
I will learn.
How hard could it be? Yeah. They're like, you know, it's like a YouTube video away from mastery. I was so fucking wrong. And also not only that, but I also can't do anything the easy way. And I also have like this fear of not getting it right. So, you know, I designed these piñatas that I stupidly made incredibly complicated because they would be so cool. But there's a reason that piñatas don't look the way that I wanted them to look is because like you'd have to be crazy to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely crazy.
You're fucking crazy.
I have spent like 2 months working. No one's worked on piñatas this long. I have fucked them up so many times. I've had to fail and fail and fail. And every time I fuck it up, I'm like, okay, that didn't work. Gotta do it differently. Until now, like I feel very good about where I've landed. But I've only gotten to this point because I literally am like.
Yeah. Is that and sorry, I know you might have more to tell about this story, but that kind of iteration, experimentation, the failing piece, is that something you intentionally bake into your creative process? Or is it just something that kind of happens?
I don't know. I kind of think that like, I'm not afraid of any sort of challenge, like any sort of creative challenge. I'm not really afraid of. And I tend to think that there's two paths. And, you know, like I've promoted this like in my work and working with other people where I'm like, look, for every hit song that was written in like 5 seconds, there's the hit song that took 10 years and 40 different
or all the songs that weren't a hit.
But I mean like I'm fascinated by this idea of like even when I'm working on music, like sometimes or in and just creativity. Like sometimes it hits really quickly and sometimes it doesn't. But because it doesn't mean that the great idea is not going to be there. It's just that you haven't figured out how to make it work yet. But I think that it's like the middle ground where it's like, this is taking longer than it should, and I don't think it's going to get where it needs to go, is where you have to have enough of a experience and have failed enough times to be like, I have to give this up.
To know when to quit.
To know when to quit.
Because you said something to me a while ago about your painting process that really stuck with me. That was, and I don't want to butcher it, but it was something, you were saying something around how when you're working on your paintings, it's almost like the whole time you're just trying to like fix an initial kind of, you make an initial mistake and then the whole work. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
My whole painting process is based around the idea of making mistakes. I don't think that that's necessarily like an original way of thinking about it. I feel like I've like jokingly discussed this with plenty of other artists where, you know, you're like painting and you take some big risk and you fuck it up and then you're like, now I have to spend all my time fucking fixing this stupid ass mistake that I made. And there's a lot of that, but intentionally for me, it's like I approach a blank canvas completely spontaneously. I throw a few marks up as fast as I can. I stand back and look at it. And then I'm like, okay, now I have to deal with the mess that I've made. And then the creation of the painting is simply a part of the process where I'm just forcing myself to correct the mistakes that I've made in order to get to like an end result that I'm comfortable with, which is why, despite the fact that I'm like a relentless optimist and like a very happy-go-lucky person. People who have like been in relationships with me or, you know, intimately involved with me enough that they've been around me when I'm making paintings and stuff. I've been like, I've never seen you get angry. And you are like so angry about these paintings that you make. Even my kids are like, man, Dad, you're scary sometimes when you're painting.
Really? I've never seen you get angry.
I know, because they'll hear me be like, fuck this. Oh my fuck. What the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Oh, God, I never should have done that. I never should have done that. Oh, I fucking hate you. I hate you so much. Oh, I'm not going to let you get away with this. But that's my other mentality. It's like, you think you're going to win? No, asshole. Like, I own this painting. This is my painting.
Is this like negative self-talk to get the painting done?
Yeah.
Wild. That is wild to me because you're such an optimist. You're one of the most positive people I know. But I wonder if is what's going on with that? Is that actually when you're getting into doing your art, it's like that's the crack? You know, you're just like, that's where you actually just get to like release all of the internal frustration and anger. Like what's going on with that?
I don't know, but it's not that way with like other creative endeavors. It's not that way with me. With music or with like
all the work that you do. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I've worked with you and it's the opposite.
It's not like that. It's very particular to painting. And I think it's because it's so blatantly obvious immediately what the mistake is, right? Like it's choosing a color and like realizing immediately that color is totally fucked up. Like oftentimes it's like using yellow. Like yellow to me is like this evil foil where like I'll always be like, I just should add a little yellow to that. But as soon as I add the yellow to it, I'm always add too much. And so I like have this point of restraint where if I'm going to paint with yellow, I will only put a very small amount in so I won't overpaint it because I'm also driven to be like, I still have yellow left. I should add a little bit more. And then I'm like, I fucking over yellowed it. And now I have to battle the yellow. But
it seems like that's the beauty of it. You know what I mean? Like you're angry about the mistake, but it also seems like that is the process.
It's the process. I think it also allows me to expel my demons. Like I repress a lot of things in order to remain a relentless optimist.
We all? Yeah.
Like I have to really suppress a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I have to let it out. I never really thought about values at all until like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Did we talk about this? I don't mean to get totally too far off topic, but I think it's kind of interesting and it kind of relates in that like this was like maybe like a year or two into my relationship with my ex-wife, and we were like out at dinner with one of her best friends, and we were just talking about some whatever, and they were talking about core values. And her friend looked at me and she's like, well, what are your core values? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, you don't know what your core values are? And I remember Gillian, my ex, was like, oh, what? You don't have any core values? And I was like, what do you mean I don't have any core values? Of course I have core values. They're like, well, what are they? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, how can you not know what you stand for? And I was like, well, I've never thought about it really. And they shamed me. They shamed me. They were like, that's crazy. You don't have core values. Like, what kind of a person doesn't have core values? And I was embarrassed. But of course I didn't let on that I was shocked and embarrassed. But I immediately did this crazy soul searching because I was like, well, I know what I don't stand for, but what do I stand for? I don't really know. But also,
I feel like everyone's value shows through the way that they show up and they act and they behave and they speak. So regardless of whether you've written them down, the values are self-evident in the person that you are.
Well, Alana, I fucking Googled what are core values. I Googled what are core values, and in a silent way in the background of my life, I began my journey into core values and a mission statement. And I spent, this is so embarrassing because I would never have, back in the day, I would have never ever talked about this. I would have never mentioned it, and I was very embarrassed by it. And if anybody told me that they were doing this, quite honestly, I probably would have been like, I'm so glad I don't have to do this. But I didn't, and I really worked for months and months on developing core values. What were they? And literally writing them down and revising them and writing them down and revising them and writing a mission statement and writing that and revising it. And I did this for forever until maybe it was even 6 months. I came to something that I thought felt really good. And I went and showed it to Gillian and she was like, what is this? And I was like, these are my core values and my mission statement. And she was like, why did you do this? I'm like, because you and fucking Kate made me feel shitty about it. And she's like, wow, this is impressive. And I was like, thanks. I feel pretty good about it. And I took it and I folded it up and put it in my wallet. And for the next year or two,
wow,
whenever I had to make a decision about something and I felt like I needed any sort of guidance, I would pull it out and I would look at it and I would use it, the criteria on it, towards making a decision. And after a year, I stopped having to look at it so much and I put it in my wallet and that was that. And then 2 years ago, I was driving upstate and it was a Friday night and it was rainy and I stopped for gas in New Jersey and I had to pull out my wallet and give my credit card to the gas station attendant and he gave it back. And I got upstate at midnight. And I got out of the car and I went to sleep and I woke up the next morning and I thought, oh, I got to go get groceries. And I'm putting on my clothes. I'm like, where's my wallet? Fuck, my wallet. Oh my God, where's my wallet? Where's my wallet? And then I was like, oh shit, I bet it fell off my lap onto the ground outside. And it rained all night and I went out and there it was. I'm like, it's soaking wet. And I pull everything out because I have to dry it out. And all folded up as this weird little piece of paper. And I open it up and I'm like, holy shit, it's my fucking core values and mission statement. I forgot all about this. I haven't looked at this in a decade. This is crazy. And it literally brought me to tears because I was reading it and I was like, I felt very good that I had delivered on every single aspect. I'd stayed true to my core values. I'd had adopted them and had really leaned into them. The one thing that I struggled with was my mission statement. And this is about failing, I guess, in a certain extent, because I thought that my general principles and values I'd stayed true to, no problem. But my mission statement, I didn't feel like I had. And I felt as though I had failed.
Yourself.
Myself in a big way.
Are you comfortable sharing what the values were? Do you remember?
Yeah. But the values aren't they're nothing.
No, I'm curious.
They're nothing crazy. And I posted this on Instagram 2 years ago when I found the note. And it was probably the most saved, commented, and engaged post I have ever done, ever, to this day, still. And a lot of people had me send it to them or was can I screenshot this?
And we need to know.
And print this out. Well, what's funny is that there was a comment that somebody left that told me I should add something to it. Because I also said that this is still always a work in progress. And I fucking added it. And I felt so good about being the one thing that I added, and I want to say it came from my friend Roanne Adams, who's an amazing designer. She has an agency called Row & Co.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, don't forget laughter.
Wait, what were the base?
Well, there was like honesty, there was love, there was empathy, there's respect, there's activity. There's all these sort of just ideas. But the one thing that was left out of it, which is so funny because like
laughter's so crucial,
was laughter.
Yeah.
I'd looked at this thing I spent months putting this together, and I can't believe that like Ro called me out and was like, "You need to add laughter," and I was like, "Shit!" So, God, I wish I had a new picture of it because I wrote it in pencil on it.
I feel like I vaguely remember this post.
But anyway, the mission statement is the thing that to me was the most damning because honesty, all these things that were on it, integrity, respect. My mission statement was that I need, and this is kind of embarrassing, so like forgive me, podcast people, but like it was like to use my creativity to bring joy and wonder into the world to the best of my ability.
I love that. What's embarrassing about that?
That I feel like I haven't delivered on that like at all. Maybe to a certain extent, but like not in the work that I have necessarily done as a creative. Like I don't think that I have focused my creative output in a commercial sense on bringing joy and wonder into the world.
Where do you feel like you have delivered on that?
I think just in like my pure creative output, like the painting, the music, the whatever, the piñata, like shit like the piñatas. Like the piñatas are great because one of the reasons I even thought about doing the piñatas in the first place was because I thought back to my mission statement and I was like, I have to make sure that everything I'm doing is using my creativity to bring joy and wonder into the world. That like I am an entertainer. My job on this planet is to entertain, and my ability to entertain comes through my creative ability. Right. And like, so when I think about what can I do that's going to bring joy and wonder into the world, like a piñata seemed like a pretty good idea. Or it's like how when I'm trying to use color or light or lines or coming up with images and ideas or like things that bring joy or make you feel something that takes you someplace, that transports you, that like brings you outside of yourself and like helps you reflect on the fact that there's all sorts of beauty and mystery in the world.
Is that way? So when we were talking in prep for this podcast, you had mentioned that you felt like you were in this kind of in-between phase, right, in your life with some of your work, like in between the success and the failure. I'm starting to understand that a little bit more now because it sounds like it's connected to this mission statement. Is that where it's at for you, that you feel like it's the commercial side of your work hasn't delivered on that and therefore that's why you're feeling like stuck? Well,
there's a reality to like living a life that you want to live in this day and age. And that is driven by a financial need, right? If I want to live in New York City, I have to make enough money to live in New York City. In order to make enough money in New York City, I'm going to have to do a lot of things that use my unique abilities, but in ways that don't necessarily tie back to my mission statement or my core values always, but like not necessarily my mission statement, which is why the core values are different than a mission statement. And so I understand that I'm not always going to be able to deliver on that, and that has to be okay. But that's when I'm doing work for other people. When I'm doing things for myself, where I am the person who's responsible for the brief, so to speak, where it's really all on me, that is when I focus on that idea. And when we were talking initially about this idea of failing up, and I feel that I'm in like a weird liminal state or like a moment of limbo, it's because I'm 47. And when I look back and reflect on the life that I've lived and the work that I've done and all of this stuff, like it's objectively kind of impressive. Right? Like,
definitely.
Like I've never won any awards. And that's the one thing I always tell people when like I talk to people, you know, about like work or whatever. They're like, well, what awards have you won? Or, you know, when you're looking at somebody's resume on LinkedIn, or even when I'm interviewing people for jobs and stuff, it's like, you know, they've won all these Lions and they've done this and they've done that. And I'm like, I have never won a single award, but yet the work that I've done has remained in the cultural conversation, or it's had like an impact outside of awards. And like that goes beyond anything else. But like when I think about success, I'm like, okay, well, I had a giant business that had a lot of cultural cachet and was really interesting and inspired people. And I've had I've been represented by a ground floor gallery in New York and had solo shows. And like I've done everything that you could want to do in order to achieve the idea of success. And yet like I'm still out there grinding every day, you know, trying to get to the next place, because I still don't feel like I've gotten there yet. Like I'm not like 47 and resting on my laurels and like I've totally made it. Like I've owned homes, I've owned cars, I've like gone to every country, and I've been to all these crazy places, and like I literally have done every fucking thing that could be a measure of success. And yet I wake up every day and I'm like, I still have to figure out how I'm going to make a living. And I still have to figure out what's next. And like, where am I going to be in another 10 years? Like, what's the next 10 years of my life going to look like? And the fact that I am not able to just be like, I'm just chilling, means to me that I have not truly achieved the success that I've desired.
Can I ask you, what does success look like to you in this moment in your life?
I mean, I have to be careful. I mean, I don't really have to be careful saying what I want to say, because I think that, you know, I'm still reliant on people hiring me to
like
eat,
most people.
To eat, right? And I don't want anybody to think that like they're hiring me and I'm not going to do the job to the best of my ability. Because the fact of the matter is that no matter what I do, I get very involved and you know, very passionate.
Yeah,
and
I can attest to that.
I am so determined to win, and like I am so competitive, and like all of those things. So anybody that can hire me can always rest assured that like I'm going to give it every fucking thing that I've gotten. Yeah. But my idea of success is me only doing me to the fullest ability and being able to sustain myself and live a comfortable living with that. And I have no interest in like, you know, the bigger material things like more than one house, or, you know, like I just want to be comfortable, and I don't need to be opulent. Like I've been opulent, and like it doesn't really,
it doesn't bring happiness.
It doesn't do anything for me. But like being able to literally be like, oh, I don't actually have to go work for people anymore because I'm able to sustain a living, like making my artwork.
And so how do you move towards this idea of success that you have?
Well, I never give up. I mean, like I literally never give up, and I never stop working. And, you know, I get discouraged sometimes when I feel like I should be in a place that I'm not. Like I get discouraged thinking that at 47, I'm still grinding, not just grinding for myself, but grinding for other people. Like that is discouraging. And I have to battle that thought all the time, because I have plenty of friends who are mega successful doing their own thing completely, like making their art or doing whatever. And I don't get jealous, because I actually think that like I find that no matter who you are or what you do creatively, if you've been able to be successful, like fucking kudos to you. And, you know, like people are like, oh, that person's just a scam and a ripoff and they don't do shit. They're just so lucky. I'm like, who cares, man? Like, it's so hard to do any of this shit that like that anybody who can make it successfully, like, great. I fully support it. I don't support like tricking people or conning people or like lazy people, but I support like being successful as an artist.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, it's all these self-imposed kind of goalpost, isn't it? Because I look at you and your life and I'm like, you're a huge success and you sell your art, just like you're talking about other people making a living off your art. This might not be the only thing you do, but you're a commercially successful artist. You sell your art. You know, you have this incredible career, you have the house, the kids, the family, all the things. And so I find it really interesting that it's like, of what people can kind of perceive looking in as something that is kind of on paper seen as a success, but then kind of our internal goalposts are consistently moving. And yeah, I feel like it's the curse of the high achiever, where you're kind of never, you reach a certain level of success and all that does is just like push out the goalposts and want you to achieve more. And you're kind of chasing this endless thing of never feeling like you've got it.
It is self-imposed, but like, you know, I oftentimes joke around with people that they're like, oh, you must sell quite a bit of artwork. Like, you know, you people know your work and this and that. I'm like, let me put it to you this way. If I was 25 and single, I could just live off my artwork. But like, I live in New York City. I'm 47 and I have 2 kids. Like, fuck that pays for nothing. You know, like it's just a joke. But I refuse to give up because I don't know what else to do. Like,
and
I'm
it's
so
core to who you are, it sounds like.
I'm so driven to create that, like,
and core to your mission.
I can't help it. Like, I'm an insomniac, then that works in my favor. I like have a weird OCD in terms of just like I'm scared. I'm really scared of not making things, and I used to be scared of not being relevant because I had created a body of work with Surface Stare that was so relevant and of the moment and really did a lot. And I've also begun to realize that like I've just gotten so much better at what I do. And I feel like it's almost cliche. Like I feel like you see all these older people all the time. They're like, you know, I remember being like 25 and looking at them and they're like at 50, like, I feel like I'm doing the best work of my life. And I'm like, you're clearly not. You know, or like musicians who are like, yeah, my 14th album is really, I finally hit my stride. And I'm like, your 3rd album was your peak. You know, like you just don't see it. And there's a certain part of me that like worries that might be the case for me. But then at the end of the day, like, I'm kind of okay with that too, as long as I feel like I'm challenging. And I'm still so inspired by what I see going on. And I like in the grand scheme of creative ideas and pushing new ideas and being open to things. Like I have a lot of friends that are not open, and I wouldn't say this to them because I don't want to hurt their feelings. And maybe some artists are more sensitive than others and you have to be careful about it. But I'm like, look, I'm inspired by things like AI. I love them. I think they're fucking phenomenal. And I'm so curious and excited by it. And yet I have all these conversations with people who are like, this is going to destroy our livelihood. And like, this is going to destroy art and music and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, only if you let it. It's just a tool. I just want to make things whatever I can. You know, like I find that to be the excitement of this world and of the time that we live in, is that like, you know, you can do anything. You can do everything. So you have to pick and choose what you do.
And are you drawn to you brought up this idea of relevancy. Like what does relevancy mean to you? Because I'm curious, are you things like AI and these emerging technologies, are you drawn to those because there's kind of a cultural relevancy to them, or it's just kind of another tool to create for you?
I mean, it's another tool to create for me. It's like, you know, like I was thinking the other day about like, or not the other day, but like a year and a half ago or so, when I was really obsessed with Midjourney and creating images in Midjourney, it was because I was like, oh, you know, I've always imagined like a floating Mexican restaurant in a lake that's made out of plastic and glows in the dark. And, you know, like just all this stuff where I'm like, now I can just make it. And I don't have to like try and draw it and it never comes out right, or find the right person to put together all the art direction. I'm like, no, I can just literally like whatever I can think of, all the fantasies that I've had, I can create those fantasies, like a team of rockabilly 1950s style greaser motorcyclists in the vein of Brando and the Wild One riding down a canyon with fireworks exploding in the background. Like I can just do that. It just.
Do you have any moral conflict with it? Obviously, there's a lot of discussion around that, right? Like, do you buy into that side of it at all?
Well, I think it's complicated. But I also grew up in the era of like sampling in music. And, like Hank Shockley from Public Enemy, one of the greatest, most innovative producers of our time, was just ripping James Brown samples and applying them. And, it was
But they were paying for them, though, I guess, right?
No, they weren't.
They weren't?
This was what started the conversation about like people not getting paid from, artists stealing old drum beats. Like the most famous drum beat, arguably one of the most famous drum beats of all time is the Amen break, and like no one gets paid off the Amen break. And no one got paid
for that? Interesting.
No.
Okay. Okay, so you feel like this idea of kind of the referential nature of it and the kind of stealing of people's IP is kind of nothing new.
I've had people rip off shit that I've done for forever. For forever, like I remember walking down the street in Chinatown one day, and I remember like thinking my partners and I were laughing because we saw this old Chinese guy in Chinatown, like literally, like when I say old Chinese man, I mean like he was like a 65-year-old, and as a 47-year-old.
So really, young.
I'd really be watching when I say he was like an old graying Chinese guy in deep Chinatown that was wearing a bootleg Surface to Air T-shirt.
Amazing.
And
amazing. Yeah.
We were so excited by this. It was like thrilling to think that somebody else was knocking off our stuff and like doing it in different colorways and making money off it that we weren't making. I was like, wow, this is great. Now, there's also a part of me that's like, someone steals something that you did and it can make you really upset. But it also shows like their weakness, like, the fact that they weren't able to craft something new out of it. It's like, when someone, like a young person comes up to me with like a photo and they're like, this is the campaign idea. And I'm like, what? That's just a piece of swipe. And they're like, but this is the idea. I'm like, that's not an idea. That's an image. Like, come back to me with an idea. Or do you know what a concept is? We should talk about this. It's almost like you can steal and make things new, and that's also good and fine. But I think that, AI has to learn from something, but we all have to learn from something. And so, whether it's Pinterest and you're absorbing Pinterest, like people sit on Pinterest all day long and look at inspiration and then go come up with their big idea. But they were coming up with their big idea based on a boatload of work that they didn't make, that they're just reinterpreting. Similar to what AI is doing. All the music I listen to on Spotify, I'm then going and creating my own music. And at some point, it's like inspired by the things that I listen to.
But what's the spectrum here? Because I think reinterpretation, that's a spectrum, right? Of like someone being inspired by something on Pinterest versus an AI model ripping off someone's artwork and creating a version of that in their style. Like, do you see a difference in those?
But if you spend enough time on Pinterest looking for shit for your mood board, you'll see that like 40 people have done the exact same thing. Like the exact same thing. It's not even like different. And you're like, wow, people are just ripping each other off left and right.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go into quick fires. My first one is, I heard you're on Karl Lagerfeld's shit list.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Quickly, how did you get in his bad books, and did you ever resolve the feud before he died?
Oh, yeah. Karl Lagerfeld came by the Surface to Air store like a couple months after we opened in Paris, and we were making all these T-shirts, and he loved the T-shirts, and I gave him a big tour, and he said, I'd love to do something with you, we should get together. And I said, okay, great. And he gave me his phone number, which Karl Lagerfeld famously didn't have a phone number, but he gave me his phone number. So he did. And he left, and I had this idea that my partners and I would take his cell phone number and burn a silkscreen of it and put it on T-shirts and sell it in the store. And so we did. And it just said Lagerfeld with his number on it. And like we made like 30 of them, and they sold out in like an hour. And of course, everybody started calling Karl Lagerfeld, and he got really upset. And he called the next day, and he was really angry that we'd done that. But then, of course, also because he's Karl, he was like, this is so, I love this. I love this so much. Like,
I love this, but I hate you.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the most useless feedback you've ever received?
The mostly useless feedback I've ever received? It needs to be more like a cloud.
That's good. If your younger self could watch you right now, what would they be proud of and what would they call bullshit on?
They wouldn't call bullshit on anything.
Oh, that's nice.
They would be really proud of me, and they would tell me to keep going.
Love. Who is your dream creative collaboration, dead or alive?
I don't know, but that last question made me feel really emotional.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's what's coming up. What's coming up for you?
I never think about that. And I think a lot about the past and I think a lot about the future, and I don't allow myself to think about how I would perceive myself. Looking back at where I started and where I am today. And that's tough.
But it's nice to know that, yeah, you would be proud of yourself.
I think I would be. I think I'd be slightly disappointed, but I would be like, don't give up, don't give up.
Yeah. I think that's nice. Dream creative collaborator, dead or alive?
Oh my God. That's really hard. I love Eve Klein.
Okay, that's a good one. If you had a warning label, what would it say?
Don't bother reading this label.
What's your biggest pet peeve in the workplace?
Ego.
What's your go-to move when you feel like a total imposter?
Stop looking in the mirror.
What do you want to be remembered for? And what do you hope people forget?
I want to be remembered for always being as creative as I can possibly be and being really open to everything and promoting the best in the world in terms of beauty and ideas and recognizing beauty and ideas everywhere.
I love that. Is there anything you want them to forget?
I used to wear this hat that I like when I see pictures of myself.
I think I
in
know
this
the hat that you're talking with. Like, it was like the little hat with like the tassel on the side.
No, that's the fez.
You're like, you love the fez.
Yeah. No, it's this other hat from like a long time ago.
Okay.
If I could Photoshop that hat out, I would.
Send me a photo. We'll put it in the. We'll put it on the final the final frame. Thank you so much.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
And thank you for doing this in 2 parts.
Anytime.
Is there anything you wish we covered off?
No, I hope that I didn't sidetrack us too much, and I hope that we landed on.
It was great.
I hope this was useful for you and for whoever else is out there.
We went on some good tangents.
Yeah.
But that's you want the tangents.
Yep.
You want the tangents.
The road is winding and it's long. It's the invisible obstacles that keep it interesting.
That's a nice note to end on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Adios.
If you liked this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. While you're at it, please drop a comment and let me know what resonated with you. I'd love to hear your take. And as always, I'd be so unbelievably grateful if you could share your favorite episode with a friend. It really is the only way an independent podcast like this can be discovered.